Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gritty Hour. My usual cohort and co-host Shawnee Boy will be along in a few minutes, but right now we have a very special guest, Herbert Eric Stevens, who is the author of a book called Stuck on the Outside, which is available on barnesandnoble.com and amazon.com. So welcome to the Gritty Hour, Mr. Stevens.
Well, thank you very much, Tom. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to read the full title of the book and a little synopsis of it, if that's okay, before we get going.
Perfect.
So the full title of the book is Literary Documentation Book, Stuck on the Outside, My Personal Quest to Become an Integral Part of the American Dream. And the little splash verbiage for the book, or the description of the book, is from the office of a U.S. Senator to a tech giant, to Hollywood network television, to the Library of Congress, to the floor of the Senate, to the desk of 6 U.S. presidents, to the auto industry, to the U.S. military. What do they all have in common? They all utilize this one man, the one-man think tank, creator of the GPS point-to-point navigation system in your phone, car, or laptop, on your desktop, and any mode of transportation. You got to ask yourself a question. Why is this guy stuck on the outside? Did he really suffer the largest theft of intellectual property in history? You read it and decide. I need to caution you, this book is not for the faint of heart. And that's the verbiage available on amazon.com, which you'll find a link to but just below, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listening to us on Apple or Google or Spotify. You'll find the link to this book right below on the show notes. So again, welcome to the Gritty Hour, Mr. Stevens. You have a wild and wicked story.
To say the least, but I think that's one of the best descriptions that I've heard.
Wild and wicked, yeah. So tell us how you got to what some of your experiences are and how you got to writing this book in the first place.
Sure. It's funny. I'm 64 years of age, and I remember on my 50th birthday, I woke up, and Tom, I said, I'm 50 today, and I ain't taking no more crap off of anybody, okay?
I've been saying that since I was 20. So.
when I turned 60, I woke up, and I patted myself. I said, okay, I'm still here. And on my 60th birthday, I said, I've been sitting on these papers I've got here for 29 years. I haven't even looked this stuff over in I don't know how long. If I'm going to write this book, I better do it now or this story is never going to get out. And my place in history, which is well-deserved, and all the financial remuneration that's due me will never be realized. I better write the book. So I literally prayed about it, man. And I said, okay, Lord, I'm going to name names, but I'm going to need you to help me. All right. And if you give me the word and show me the way, I literally am going to be all in. Tom, I sat down and I wrote a 400-page book in 7 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Normally it takes somebody a year. Now, I hadn't seen these documents myself in some of them in all of 29 years, okay? And when I'm looking at this stuff and I'm writing and I'm using it to write the book, and I'm literally sitting there, I'm going, holy smokes, like, who was this guy? And these documents are absolutely just amazing, okay? So the book starts off basically in the late 70s. I'm at Arizona State University, and I'm taking a course in Brazilian Portuguese, and they say, hey, listen, we're going to do a student exchange down in Guatemala at the Universidad Francisco Marroquín. Do you want to go? So I signed up and I said, yeah, I'd go. So when we got down there, I had remembered standing in line on the college campus, and that was the first presidential election that I ever was able to vote in, and I actually voted for Jimmy Carter, okay? Now, when we get down to Guatemala and we get off of the plane, they hand us these sheets of paper. The paper literally said, if war breaks out between the Sandinistas and the Contras, the U.S. government will not get you out. Signed, Jimmy Carter.
Hmm.
That was the last Democrat that I ever voted for.
Oh boy.
For president.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I knew I was okay in a sense because I was in a fraternity. I was an alpha. And in our graduate chapter, there was one person I knew I could call on that if anything went wrong, they could get me out. And in our graduate chapter was the one and only Jesse Owens.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
Yeah. So I called up Mr. Owens. I explained the situation to him. He said, don't worry about it. Get to your classes and things. Enjoy yourself down there. He says, make sure your grades are tops. And if anything goes down, I will get you out. So when I got back to the United States, I literally kissed the earth.
Yeah.
I got down on my knees and I kissed the tarmac. True story.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. People just have no idea the freedoms that we have in this country and how great of a nation this really is.
Absolutely.
Spend some time abroad in some of these poor countries, and you'll have a total different outlook and appreciation on things and the way things are supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I get back here, the hostages had just been taken in Tehran. Okay, like 4 days or something like that. Two things that happened while I was gone because you couldn't get any news down there. One, we had no idea about, the Iranians taking the Americans hostage, okay? And number two, one of my favorite singers, Minnie Riperton, had died. Literally broke my heart. So anyway, I turned on the TV and they said, hey, man, this hostage situation, the White House is just, President Carter, he just has no idea what to do about this. As a matter of fact, we've got a hotline. If anybody out there has any ideas on how we should be able to deal with this situation, here's a number you can call. And it was like getting hit in the head with a lightning bolt. I literally stood up. I said, well, heck, man, I can figure that out. All you got to do is X, Y, and Z. So I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's in the book. But anyway, so I call the White House, and the guy, he says, man, we haven't heard anything like that. He says, you know what? I'm going to pass that along. So I hang up the phone going with my life, and they take it, and they shelve it. 8 months later, they bring it out, and they use it. So when we go into chapter 2, Reagan is in office, and I guess it's somewhere between 83 and 85. But anyhow, there was a cruise ship called the Achille Lauro. And there was a gentleman on there by the name of Klinghoffer and his wife. They were on vacation on this cruise ship.
Yes, I remember that.
Pirates boarded the ship, and they took Mr. Klinghoffer in his wheelchair, man, and they threw him into the sea. Okay?
Yeah, I remember it vividly,
Do you remember that happening?
Very vividly, yes.
Okay, yeah. So then a little later on, I think it was TWA flight 847 or 487 or whatever. But anyway, Reagan was president, and this TWA flight was hijacked. And I guess it was around maybe like the 11th day. This thing has been going on, and these guys are on the tarmac. But there's a U.S. Navy guy, and he's sitting in his seat on the plane, and they shoot him in the head. Then they dump his body on the tarmac, and they pump one into his chest. They shoot him again. Now, he's already dead, okay? And I stood up, and it was like that lightning bolt again. I'm like, hey, man, we've got to do something about this. Now you have pissed me off. So what I do is I write this letter, and I send it in to the White House, okay? And on the 23rd of July that year, they draft a letter to send back to me, and I remember it vividly because that's I have 4 sisters, that's one of them's birthday. And I get this letter, and I look at this letter, and I'm like, man, this is a keeper. I'm keeping this. Now, down the left side in the book, you'll see the letters in there, and you'll see all the Joint Chiefs and all the brass and everybody. So what I did was I told them, I said, look, what you have to do is you're going to have to put a price on some of these guys' heads, man. And the guy who was head of the NSA at that time was a guy by the name of John Fisher. He was, back then they called him President John Fisher. So Fisher writes back and he says, well, we've been getting a lot of ideas from a lot of people, but, you do have some very good ideas and you do raise some good points, but we don't think that foreign countries would, take the money, we think that they would protect their own, but, so they take it and they shelve it. 7 years later, Bill Clinton's in office, right? And Clinton brings it out and dusts it off and they use it. You ever hear this thing, Tom, called Black Hawk Down?
Yes, in Mogadishu, yes.
There you go. So what I had done was I had said, now dollars are different then than they are today, okay? And back at that time, I put a cap ceiling on it. I said, you need to charge a maximum of like, $25,000. So there's this little blurb that comes out that's in the New York Times, and it says, the U.S. government has posted a $25,000 bounty on the head of the Somali warlord Adid. To the friggin' penny, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's on YouTube right now, unless somebody hears this and takes me down. Takes it down. I've been in a 4-year war with Silicon Valley. That's another story. But anyway, in this documentary on Black Hawk Down, you could literally take the letter, because I always make copies of everything. So I had a copy of the letter that I had sent to the White House for Reagan. That's in the book. And then I have a copy of the original letter that they sent back, that Fisher sent back. You can literally hold that letter up and you can look at the military guy who is narrating exactly what procedures that they used in this documentary. You can hold up my letter and it's as though the words in my letter are coming right out of this man's mouth.
Wow.
Just amazing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, 9/11 when they did the 52 cards in the deck, and they were putting like $10 million up on Saddam Hussein's sons.
Oh, yeah.
And
He was the ace of spades, I'm assuming, right?
yeah, I'm the guy.
Yeah.
I am the guy that created the bounty on international terrorists. So that's chapter 2. So then when we get to chapter 3, it's on the GPS. Okay. Now I am the guy that the good Lord gifted, man, to bring the GPS point-to-point navigation system to the world. So I'm gonna give you the short version of it. So this is 1989, and I was a salesman, okay? And my wife at the time said, Eric, you need to get one of those new cellular telephone things because you're always getting lost. I said, I don't get lost. She says, well, get it. So I got one. So I got the first bill. And back then they charged like $1 a minute, man, but nobody knew where they lived. Everybody spoke in, landmarks, okay? They'd say like, okay, listen, you want to go down, you'll see a stone wall, and then, you'll see a red silo, and then, you'll see a blinker, and then you're going to make a left turn there, and then you're going to go to the cul-de-sac, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Nobody knew the street names and nobody knew where they lived. So I had this appointment. I was a salesman. And so I called the lady up and she says, okay, where are you? I said, well, there's a stone wall on the right. I said, there's a red silo on the left side of the road. And I'm on the side where the red silos. And she says, oh, I know exactly where you are. She says, okay, here's what you're going to do. So I said, okay, hang on. And I'm writing this down. Okay. So she tells me that I'm going to go to this blinker. And at the blinker, I'm going to make a left. And I said, okay, now let me read these directions back to you. So when I'm reading them back, I said, now when I go to the blinker, I'm going to make a left. She says right. She doesn't say correct. She says right. So which way do you think I turn, Tom?
Yeah.
I go right. Right?
Yeah.
I end up 10 friggin' miles out of town, man. So I call back and she says, well, let me put Bob on, my husband. So Bob comes on. He says, well, where are you? I said, well, now, man, I'm in the middle of 2 cornfields. I said, I saw a sign that says fresh corn. He's like, I know exactly where you are. What you gonna? Oh, what? Oh, Eric. Pam says she's got to go to her mother's house. Sorry, we're gonna have to do this another time. So now I'm sitting in the middle of this field in the van. I'm pulled over the side of the road, and I'm having this conversation with myself, and I'm speaking literally out loud. Nobody else in there but me. I'm like, dang, man, she says, I say left. She doesn't say correct. She says right. I end up 10 miles out of town. It's my fault. My God, I wish somebody could help me find my way. My God, I wish somebody could help me find my way. Here's that lightning bolt to the head again, right? And it's as though the Lord has spoken, man. And he literally says, oh, you want to know how to find your way? Okay, I'm gonna show you how to find your way. Let's see what you do with it. Says, you see that phone you got? I go, yeah. He says, you see these maps? I go, yeah. And at the time, I had like 3 state maps. I had Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. I had 5 county maps. I believe at the time I probably had Philadelphia County, Delaware County. I probably had Camden County, New Jersey. Let's see. I would have had Burlington County, New Jersey, and probably Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I had a road atlas and a telephone that I just got the first bill the day before. You want to know how much the bill was? It was $900.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is 1989.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there and I'm lost. And I said, well, man, I got a phone here, man. But shoot, I don't even want to use it. I just got this friggin' bill, man. Nobody knows where they live. And I said, well, heck, man, if I call directory assistance, what the heck am I going to say when she says city, please? Forget that. What the heck am I going to say when she says, what do you call it?
Mm-hmm.
And the voice says, well, you could put the map in the phone, man. You got a screen there. So let's say you had a screen. It was in a phone or it was in the car or whatever. You put a map down there, and then you can have like a little icon thing that looks like the car for the direction that you're heading. And you know what? You could even have some writing that says like make a left turn on 5th Street. Shoot, man, you could even have audio and have somebody reading it to you while you're moving along. Now, this is 1989, and all of this is in the book. Okay. Mm-hmm. So long and the short of it is, since I'm giving you the short version, mm-hmm. I'm sitting there, and I think this is the best line in the whole book. I'm sitting there, and I said, well, man, geez, man, I wonder if it's the same way in Europe. And I literally say out loud, they can't have anything like this in Europe, man, because if there was anything out there like this, the freaking Americans would have came up with it first, man. I'd know about it, and I'd be using that thing, man. There can't be anything out there like this, man. And you know what? If it's this same way on the ground, it's got to be the same on the water.
Yeah.
If it's the same on the water, it's got to be the same in the air. I said, shoot, man, I know what I'm going to call this thing. I'm going to call this thing Global World Connect. Right. I could map the entire freaking globe. Global World Connect. Man, everybody would use this. They use this for everything, man. And you'll even see when you read in the book, I even put plans in where I said UPS would literally use it to navigate the ground services.
Yeah.
And I was telling all the different types of uses that, it could be for, what have you. Another thing that I actually did was I also said that it could run by satellite through a phone. I also said that it could be run through cable. I said it could be run via fax machine, But what's interesting about all of that is in 1991, I got a letter in the mail from someone, and they said, hey, man, Motorola is just now putting the satellite to a cell phone. I was 2 years ahead of that technology. Wow. I mean, this thing is absolutely just amazing, and all the documents are there. I'm the first man to ever apply for a patent on it. Mm-hmm. I'm the first man to ever apply for copyright on it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when I decide that I'm going to do this, I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, man, I'm not talking to anybody, man. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to go home. I'm going to figure this out. So I was a salesman, and there were 2 guys that I knew. The first guy's name was Victor Johnson, and Victor was one of my customers, but he worked in transportation. That's all I knew was he worked in transportation. Mm. The other guy's name is Winston Jones, and all I knew about Winston was he worked in computers. That's it. I had sold both of them a product. So the first one I go and see is Victor. And I go over to Victor's house, and his wife, Carol's there, and I said, hey, listen, I know that you're in transportation. I said, but I've never spoken to anybody about this, but I got this idea. I said, I want to see what you guys think. So I told them about, the 5 things that, that it would have, and that it was a way to navigate from point A to point B, while somebody is telling you while you're driving, or what have you. It could be in a phone, it could be in a car, this type of thing. But it would have 5 things. 1, it would have a screen. 2, it would have a map. 3, it would have an icon. 4, it would have the writing text on it. And 5, it would have the audio. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he says, that sounds like a good idea. Sounds like it might work. He says, and his wife Carol said, well, listen, she said, I can type up any kind of document or anything that you need. And I said, so you guys are willing to help? He said, yeah, we can help. We'll help. I said, okay, fine. So then I go over and I see Winston. Now, Winston and his wife, Jody, they both worked in a garage with a gentleman who actually created the billing systems computerized that are now used in hospitals all around the world.
Oh.
The first guy.
Wow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I explained to him, and they're like, yeah, it sounds like it has merit. He says, now, Jody and I both work with this guy, so we understand how, computer technology works, so we can help you out with that. Now, we don't know what you're trying to do or whatever, but if we can help, we'll help. I said, okay, great. I said, well, I'm going to go home. I'm going to put this together. I'm going to write it all up, and we'll see where we go from there. So I write it all up. I send it in to the patent office. Okay, patent office sends it back. I get on the phone. I call the guy, and he says, well, Mr. Stevens, we need a drawing. And I'm like, well, man, how the heck you going to draw something that's never been invented before? He says, I don't know what to tell you, but we need a drawing. So I go see Winston. I go, hey, Winston, listen, man, you're the computer guy, and the patent office said they need a drawing. I said, man, you need to draw this thing.
Get some schematics out there.
Yeah, Tom,
Yeah.
I can see his face to this day. And he literally looked at me with this man. He says, but Eric, I can't draw this thing. It's your idea. It's in your head. You've got to be the one that got to draw this thing. He says, now I can tell you what you need. Okay. He says, but I have no idea how to put it together. Whatever, it's your idea. I said, okay, fine, Winston, tell me what I need. So he tells me what I need, and I write it down. So now I go over and I go see Victor, and I say, Victor, man, Winston won't draw this thing, man. I said, and I don't know how to do no drawing for no, thing that's never, what the heck am I supposed to do? He says, relax. Just give me a few days. Going home, give me a few days. I said, a few days? He said, yeah, just go home. I go, okay, fine. 2 days later, he calls me up. He says, come over to the house. I go over to the house. He says, you see that box there? I go, yeah. He says, take it and put it in your car. I said, well, what's in it? He said, you see the box? I said, yeah. He says, take it and put it in your car. I said, well, what's in it? He said, take the box and put it in your car. I go, okay. So I take it, I put it in the car. I go back to the house. I go, okay, what's in it? He says, go home. I said, excuse me? He says, go home. I go, okay. I go home. I open up this box. Tom, I don't know to this day how this dude did this, but he's got U.S. government maps of topography of the entire United States, longitude and latitude. Okay. Then he's got patents, and he's got patent drawings. And I go like, oh, so that's how you do a patent drawing. Okay. Now I had taken a 9th grade drafting class, so I knew how to use the T-square templates and things like that. I could draw. Okay. So I sat down on the 13th of July in 1989, and I created the hardware. I created the software. I created the network and everything. And the one thing that Winston told me that was paramount, he says, no matter how many items that you use, he says, you got to have a place to store the maps. He says, but what's more important than anything is you have got to have a merge. So when you look at the book, and you'll see the patent drawings, because they're all in there, everything that's in that book description that you read, Tom,
Yes.
up front,
The little,
the documents to support it all are in the book.
Yeah, well, that's what if I could interject, that's what I wanted to say to our audiences, how much credence you give to Mr. Stevens or not, he does have documents to back up what he's saying. And this is the intriguing part of this book. If you go out and buy the book, stuck on the outside, you'll see he documents everything he's telling you now. And the other thing, if I can interject a little levity, as you were talking about making the right instead of saying correct, he said right. I was thinking of the texting while driving laws that are in effect today. Had they known when I was before cell phones, and before GPS, or as you called it, Global World Connect, trying to read a road map while you're driving 55 miles an hour.
How about that? Because that's what we used to do.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I was not kidding, man. That's how many maps I had in my car. I was a salesman, door to door.
Yeah.
And that was the territory that I covered, Mid-Atlantic States, Pennsylvania, Jersey, Delaware. And in Pennsylvania, in Jersey, it was like 2 counties over there and 3 counties over there. And Crazy,
And
crazy.
even now, when researching, doing my own due diligence for this podcast, you do a simple search on Google for what I put was who invented the global positioning or the global, I forget what the search term I used, global point-to-point navigation
satellite
system.
is what it actually stands for, GPS, right?
Yeah, global positioning satellite. Yeah, there's a discrepancy in the results you get. You get the Wikipedia attributes it to the United States government, the military end, and that's where a lot of people were first exposed to the concept of GPS was during the first Persian Gulf War. You seeing these bombs coming in and knocking teacups off of tables. But you can also see a lady named Gladys West who actually worked for the U.S. Naval Weapons Laboratory. So there's a lot of discrepancy in who gets the credit for this.
Shall I straighten it all out?
Yeah,
for you?
I was just going to give you the wide open thing to do so. Let it rip.
Okay. Okay. This is beautiful stuff, man. So on the History Channel right now, they've been doing this thing where they talk about Thomas Edison and the light bulb. They're talking about Henry Ford and his cars, Rockefeller and his oil boom, and what have you. But when you get to the GPS, it's crickets. It's crickets, man. And what's interesting is that the GPS has grown to become the most utilized application on the face of the earth.
No doubt.
There's not one good service or product that does not pass through GPS. There's not one person on this earth who literally does not benefit from it in one way or the other. I don't care if you're in the Amazon rainforest and the nuns are bringing in goods. At one point or another, that product was shipped rail, plane, boat, truck, car, rail, GPS. If
Absolutely.
You're in Richmond, Virginia,
absolutely agree.
Yeah. Levi Strauss in San Francisco. Okay. How does your cotton get from Richmond to San Francisco? Rail, truck, plane, boat, ship, car, GPS. They manufacture the jeans. They want them on the rack in Miami. J.C. Penney's. How they get from San Francisco to J.C. Penney? Train, bus, rail, boat, ship, whatever. GPS. I don't care if it's paint on the wall, where they get the raw materials, and mine knows to get them to the factory to manufacture and mix the paint, okay, for your wall. How does it get there? Truck, rail, boat, ship, car, plane, GPS. So
absolutely, yeah.
That doesn't move through GPS. There's nothing that's bigger, and that's what's at stake here. Okay, that's what's at stake. So first thing they came up with a guy by the name of Brad Parkinson. And Bradley Parkinson was in the Air Force, okay? He's also like a huge Stanford guy, and they've got this thing where he's given all of these talks on what the GPS can do. And he says, we had the first meeting on GPS back in 1973, and then we had the dark meeting at the Pentagon in 79, and then in 1996, and I'm like, well, hold on, Bradley. You just went from 79 to 96. What happened in 89? Oh, that's right. Herbert Stevens is the one who tied it all together with GPS point-to-point navigation system, okay? He's talking about, it'll be used till we were landing airplanes and without a pilot on them, and we were also plowing and laying down the roads straight. That's what they were using it for, okay? Now, Gladys Mae West. So Gladys Mae West, there was a movie that came out starring Taraji P. Henson as a lady by the name of Catherine. I don't recall what Catherine's last name is, but she's the lady who was the mathematician to help John Glenn orbit the Earth and come back to Earth. Okay?
I haven't seen that movie, but I remember it. Yes.
Yeah, it's called Hidden Figures with Kevin Costner.
Yeah, it came out a few years ago.
If you haven't seen it, people, find it and watch it. Okay, I actually took a copy of my book to the living room of the lady Catherine's brother-in-law, the guy who she was married to before she passed away. His brother has a copy of my book. Okay, Also, I've heard, well, the first directional thing that they came up with in a car, was put together in 1980. Now, this is Wikipedia we're talking about, because you brought up Wikipedia, okay?
Yeah.
In 1988, these two guys in a laboratory, they put it through a cellular phone, and that was done at MIT in 1988. Well, guess what? Those patent papers were in the box in '89 that Victor gave to me, and Wikipedia is no more reliable than the man next door, okay? Because that was actually applied for in the form of a patent back in the 1970s. And what it was a box that you mounted next to your steering column, and all it did was go in reverse. So if you wanted to go to 7-Eleven, you would put the address in for 7-Eleven. It would say, okay, go out your driveway. It would say, make a right. At the corner, make a left. At the next corner, make a right. Then when you come out of 7-Eleven, the only place it could be programmed to go would be back to the house where you came from. So it would say, okay, make the left, make the right, make the left, you're back home. That's all it was a reverse mode box, okay? So again, that was in Victor's box. He had some amazing stuff in there, right? But anyway, so as far as Bradley Parkinson goes, he's then in like the year 2000 or something. Now he's standing and he's in front of this really big, huge screen, and he's lecturing and he's telling about all of the different things that the GPS could now be used for. And every one of them that he's talking about is coming right out of my document in the book from 1989. Okay,
Right.
so it's that. So then we go and we move on to Gladys Mae West. So Gladys Mae West is someone that they found to mimic the hidden figures. Catherine was real, and she really did help John Glenn figure out the mathematical formula to ascend around the Earth and to be able to re-enter. That's all real. That's all 100% fact, okay? But Gladys Mae West worked for Navy Dahlgren, and she was a mathematician. So Silicon Valley finds Gladys Mae West, and they approach Gladys Mae, and they said, "Did you know what Gladys meant?" And she says, "Yes." And they said, "Well, how old are you now?" She says, "Oh, I'm 85 or 86 or 87 years old. I'm retired. My husband over here, And why? What is it that you guys need?" "Well, you used to work at Navy Dahlgren, right?" She said, "Yeah." "And you were a mathematician, right?" "Yeah." "Well, heck, you're the one who's responsible for the GPS that they use nowadays." And she says, "Really, I am?" She says, "Yeah." So she starts getting all these interviews on YouTube, and you can see a plethora of them, and they talk about, where she was born, and how she went to school, and she didn't want to be on the farm, so she got educated. She was all this great mathematician. Meanwhile, over at Bradley Parkinson, where he's giving this big speech and what have you, he literally says, "And oh, by the way, the mathematics that we received from Navy Dahlgren, we just dismissed that. We had our own mathematicians." And I'm like, oh, they just threw Gladys Mae West under the bus.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, what I then did was I found the newspaper that actually wrote the article, and I called up the newspaper and I spoke to the lady who wrote the story on her. And I said, "Well, I'm in New Jersey now." I said, "But I would love to be able to meet Gladys Mae West. Could you arrange that for me?" And she says, "Well, I'll talk to her daughter and I'll get back to you." So she talks to the daughter, and the daughter gets back to her and says, "Yeah, here's her number. You can text her." So I text her, we text back and forth. So I have all these text messages, and they'll be in the next book, okay? So anyway, long and the short of it is, she says, "Yeah, you can meet Mom and Dad." I said, "Okay, fine." So I get in my car, and I drive from New Jersey down to Prince George, Virginia. And I take Gladys Mae and her husband to the IHOP. Now, I go by the newspaper before, and I leave a copy of my book, hardcover, that sells for $205.43 at Barnes & Noble. I leave a hardcover copy for the lady who wrote the story, and then I leave a copy for them to give to Gladys Mae. So now I'm sitting at the table, and I'm sitting there, and we're having breakfast at the IHOP. And I said, "Well, Gladys Mae, the reason I wanted to meet you is because I happen to be the man who invented the GPS point-to-point navigation system." And I opened up the book, and I showed her my patent drawings. And she looked at her husband, and she looked at me, and she literally said, "Well, I never worked on anything like that. um, um, you know, we dealt with the curvature of the ocean, and you know, like a satellite to be able to like pinpoint like a lost ship on the sea, you know, point to point that. She says, I never worked on any of that. She says, as a matter of fact, you know, I don't personally think that the GPS is 100% reliable, and I don't even use it. I still use maps. And I said to her, I said, well, only thing I can tell you is whoever came to you and is telling you this is Silicon Valley using you to distort. When my story finally gets out there that I'm the guy, and she turned to her husband and she said, Ira, we're being used, and they didn't even give us any money. So I said to them, I said, well, only thing I can tell you is I left a copy of the book at the newspaper for you. I appreciate you, you know, coming to breakfast with me this morning. And I have the text messages and I have the receipt, and they will be in the next book. Okay. And so the next time I saw her, she was on YouTube, and the lady was talking, oh, Gladys May, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have the GPS the way we use it today. And she stopped this woman cold. She said, well, excuse me, but I didn't work on any of that. I didn't work any of that. Now we go forward about 6 months after that, all of a sudden the two of them are on another one. And all of a sudden Ira's sitting there, and Ira's got on a brand new suit. He's got on a $300 silk tie. And I'm like, well, I guess they're still trying to push the narrative. Okay? Yeah, very, very interesting stuff. So yeah, but Gladys May West, I sat down at a table across from her, and she knows the truth.
Well,
So
let me ask you a question, Eric. So do you have the patent pending, or you have the patent filing?
So let me tell you.
Yeah.
So in the book, you will see the actual application for patent, date stamped in time.
Okay.
So I leave Victor's, I go home, and I create the thing, I get the drawings together and what have you. So now his wife Carol says, you know, maybe we should have a meeting, and we can have a meeting at the house. I go, okay. So I invite maybe 7 or 8 people over, and I have them all sign non-disclosure agreements. Man, I ain't trust anybody. Remember, I said in that vein I was going to keep this as close to the vest as possible. Okay. I had my wife sign a non-disclosure agreement. I had my sister sign a non-disclosure agreement. Tom, I had my priest sign a non-disclosure agreement, and that one is in the book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't trust anybody. So after they leave, you know, my wife, you know, she had known all of this was going on, but you know, it's like, hey, he's just doing whatever, you know, crazy project, whatever. But once she saw a group of people in my living room, then she was convinced that it had merit. So after they leave, she's at the sink and she's washing dishes, and she has her back to me and she says, you know, if you need some seed money for your invention, she says, why don't you just call up Senator Jay Rockefeller from West Virginia? And I said, excuse me? She says, yeah, why don't you call up Jay Rockefeller? I said, I'm going to call Rockefeller. Well, what the heck am I going to say to Rockefeller? She says, well, all you got to do is tell him that you're married to Junius Gilbert's granddaughter, and if you do that, they'll give you an appointment. I said, you are lying to me. She said, oh, you think I'm lying? She says, my grandfather used to work for him when he was the governor of West Virginia for 15, 16 years. You call him up, you'll get the appointment. I said, really? She said, yeah, I made the call. I got the appointment. So in the book, you're going to see back then we did return receipt request. You'll see the green cards. You'll see the signatures of his secretaries and all of that stuff, right? So they give me the appointment and what have you. But before I go, I've got one more group of people I'm going to see. There's a lady named Betty Wilson and her husband, Pony Wilson. Now, he taught football, coached football. He also taught at Rutgers, Camden. She was also a teacher in the school system. But we became very, very good friends over the years. But they were older than me, so they were like my advisors. So I'm supposed to be going down to Washington in a few days for this appointment. So I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to them. Okay. So when I go and talk to them, he says, you're going to see Rockefeller, right? I go, yeah. He says, you're going to protect that thing? I said, well, I guess I could. And he says, yeah, you might want to do that. He says, let me give you a little bit of money. I go, okay, fine. So I start making these phone calls, and I call up a law firm and I make an appointment on K Street. And then I don't know how I found this one guy, but in the book I refer to him as Mr. X. And I had an appointment with him at 8 o'clock in the morning in Arlington. And then I had the appointment at like 10 o'clock with the law firm. And then at 2 o'clock, 2:30 in the afternoon is when I'm supposed to go and see Rockefeller, right? But I've got this thing and I want to make sure this darn thing works, man. So I got the drawings done and I'm thinking, man, who do I know? Who do I know? And there's this one lady who pops in my head. Her name was Anita Broadwater. And she was one of my customers too. But when I sold her her products, her husband was not home, but she had told me he was a retired Tuskegee Airman.
Oh.
So I called her up and I said, Miss Anita, I'm working on this project and I was wondering if you would ask your husband if he might take a look at it. And she literally says, she says, well, hold on, I'll ask the colonel. So third person, right? So she comes back and she says, the colonel said he will see you at what time and how soon can you get here? I said, I'm dropping everything. I'll be there in 30 minutes. So I go over and I got this thing in a binder. I paid $100 for this real nice binder. Everything looks professional. I got the hardware, the software. I got the whole package. All my IP is in this binder. So I walk in. She introduces me to the colonel and she leaves the room. She goes to the other side of the house. So this is very important that she does this, right? So I hand it to him. He sits down and he leaves me standing in the middle of his floor for like a half an hour, almost at it like I'm at attention, right? Hilarious, right? So, but he's reading everything, man. He's going over everything. Tom, I mean, he's reading the software, the hardware, the this, the that, everything, right? So finally he closes the binder, he shoves it away, and he takes his glasses off and he looks at me and he's like, well, I said, sir, I have but one question. Is there any way today, next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, that anybody can tweak this thing to make it work a different way or do something or add or take something away? I said, or is there any way that anybody can say that I am not the man who created this Global World Connect point-to-point GPS navigation system? And he looked at me and he laughed and he literally said, young man, absolutely not. You've got this thing tighter than a gnat's ass. And I said, oh, okay.
He talks.
I guess it's ready to go to Rockefeller, right?
He talks like a colonel.
Yeah. So I leave there, okay, and I don't tell him that I'm taking it to Rockefeller. I don't say anything to this guy. Now, I never knew anything more about him till I'm writing the book in 2017. In 2017, I said, gee, I wonder if he's still alive. Let me Google him. So he had died in 2015. You ready for this? Broadwater was a Congressional Medal of Honor, gold medal winner, okay, which is the highest award you get as a civilian from the White House and from the U.S. government. He was a Tuskegee Airman. He flew his last solo flight at age 83.
Wow.
He also, you ready for this one? He was an air traffic controller at DWI.
Oh.
He was an expert in engineering, technology, communication, and navigation.
Wow.
And that's the man who gave me the go-ahead on the GPS and told me it was ready to go. Had he said anything else to me, like, oh, you got nothing here, so we wouldn't have it today. But what he said to me encouraged me to go forward. So then I go to see Rockefeller. So Rockefeller's chief of staff is a guy by the name of Lane Bailey. And I think he's still alive, and I think Rockefeller's still alive.
I'm sorry, Eric. I'm sorry, Eric. What was, well, before we go forward, I don't want to interrupt you, but my co-host, Sean E-Boy, is with us, and I just wanted you to say hello to him.
Hey there, Shawnee boy, man. I am glad you got here, man. You got here at the meat of the potato.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Eric. How's it going, man?
Outstanding. I so appreciate you guys taking the time and having me on. I really do appreciate you giving me an opportunity to be heard.
We're certainly enjoying it, but I just wanted to ask, what was Rockefeller at the time? The vice president under Ford, or what was he?
No. We're talking about the Senator J. Rockefeller.
Oh, J. Rockefeller. I'm sorry.
He's still alive, but he was a United States senator.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was thinking Nelson Rockefeller. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got the appointment with him, but his chief of staff was a guy by the name of Lane Bailey. So my appointment is like at 2 o'clock or 2:30. So when I get there, Lane walks me in there and he says, so what do you got? And I said, oh, I said, well, I have an appointment to see the senator. He says, oh, you won't be seeing him today. I go, what are you talking about? He says, well, if you look at the monitor over there, and I walk over and look at the monitor, he says, yeah, he got an emergency call, and he's on the floor of the Senate right now. So you won't be seeing him today. I said, well, can I wait? He says, no, you won't be waiting. I said, well, can I reschedule? He says, no, you won't be rescheduling either. He says, so what do you got? And I said, well, it's for the senator to see. And he says, well, yeah, that's okay. You can give it to me. And I said, well, with all due respect, everybody who has seen this thing thus far has signed a non-disclosure agreement. Would you be willing to sign a non-disclosure agreement? I'm not signing anything, okay? You don't seem to understand. Whatever it is that you have in that satchel that you brought here today for the senator, you will not leave this building with it. Do you understand me? Now, turn it over. Now, I'm 32 years old at the time. I'm a black man. I'm standing in the office of the then most powerful sitting senator on the face of the earth. And I've had, since I've written the book, I've had people say, well, what did you give it to him for? Look, man, in 1989, you're going to do whatever they tell you to do. Or, Shawnee, we aren't sitting here having this conversation today, okay?
Right.
He made it pointedly clear that if I did not turn it over, there's going to be a major problem, okay? I may even disappear.
Wow.
Now, at the age of 64 and at the age of 60, when I was writing the book, I finally figured it out. These guys knew who I was, and I was set up before I even got there. They knew who I was by things that I had done in 78, 79 with the White House, things that I had done in the early 80s with Achille Lauro and what have you. So they knew that I had something, but I had no idea, right? So I handed it to him, and he says, and now you can go. I go, okay, fine. Now, at 8 o'clock that morning, in Arlington, Virginia, I met with a man in the book. I referred to him as Mr. X. And the reason I have not revealed who he is because I'm not certain as to whether or not he is still alive or if he's gone. Okay. So anyway, I took 2 copies of my intellectual property to Washington with me that morning. So the first copy is for him. So I walk in, we're sitting there, we're chatting. He says, Eric, man, he says, I got to tell you. He says, I can tell you as sure as I am born, there is nothing on the face of the earth like this. He says, it's flat out amazing. I said, well, that's a copy for you. You're welcome to keep it. He says, well, thank you very much. He says, well, what are you going to do with it? I said, well, I'm down here trying to get some seed money. I'm going to see a senator, this afternoon. He says, well, good luck with that. He says, but I can tell you, sure as I'm born, there's nothing like this anywhere on the face of the earth. I said, okay.
What year is this, Eric?
Huh?
What year?
This is 1989.
Okay.
1989. This is late September 1989.
Okay.
So I then leave him, and now I'm going to take some advice from Betty and Tony Wilson, and I'm going to a law firm. And I go to a law firm named Mason, Fenwick, and Lawrence on K Street. And I walk in and I said, hey, I'd like to have a patent search done on Global World Connect. Okay. I said, how much is it? They said, well, it's $1,000. Now I had the 1,000, but I only have like $880. So they're like, well, okay, we'll take that. You give us $720 later. I said, okay, that's fine. They said, but we won't begin the search until you pay us the other $120. I said, that's perfect. So the one guy says, well, can we keep this binder? I said, oh no. I said, but you can make a copy of it. So he takes it and he goes to make copies. So he comes back and I said, can I have a receipt? I said, matter of fact, let me have 2 receipts. Boy said, get 2 receipts, right? So he looks at the other attorney and says, he wants 2 receipts. He says, hey, we got his money. Go ahead and give him 2 receipts. Okay, fine. So in the book, you will see Global World Connect. You will see date stamp time 2 hours before I go to Rockefeller and they rip me off, okay? You will see it is protected. Now, why do you guys think I didn't give him the whole 1,000? I had the 1,000, but why did I only give him 880? Any idea?
Because I don't know, because they hadn't done the title search yet, or they haven't done the patent search yet. Okay.
Because if I give them the whole 1,000, you guys, back then they would have began the patent search, and as soon as they began the patent search, it would have become public domain. So any corporation, military, anybody could go in and could see this. Guys, man, they sit around the patent office, they sit around the copyright trademark office all day. And as soon as something gets stamped, if they can take it and run with it before it gets produced, you have people that will actually do that, and then they fight it out in the courts as far as who owns the rights and what have you. So I didn't want that patent search to begin because Mr. X at 8 o'clock in the morning already told me, man, there's nothing like this on the face of the earth. So let's talk about who Mr. X is. And that's why I say all of this was a gift from God, man, because first of all, Winston, the computer guy. Second of all, Victor, the transportation guy. Third of all, you know, you got Colonel Broadwater, okay, who's the expert. And here is who Mr. X was, okay? Mr. X was a state Supreme Court judge. He also worked for NASA. He also ran the copyright, the trademark, and the patent office, okay? Now, that day, he actually gave me some papers. He says, here, I'm gonna give you these papers. I said, you don't have to give me any papers. You're an attorney. This is client attorney privilege stuff. So I handed him the papers back. And he looks at me, he says, young man, I want you to take these papers. I want you to keep them. And I want you to put them away because one day you just might need these. So yeah, I've got his resume with his DNA on it. Okay. And so that's who that guy was. So in 91, all of a sudden, now remember, so Rockefeller and them have taken my intellectual property. All right. So what they actually did with it, what I found out later on, what they actually did with it was I had called them up, had sent them a letter, and I talking to Lane Bailey, and I said, look, you know, did Rockefeller get to at least see it? Did the senator see it? He says, yeah, he saw it. I said, well, what's going on? He says, well, he hasn't decided exactly which way we're going to go with this yet, but when we do, you'll get it back. Okay. And he hangs up. Okay. Right. So what they did was they took it and they shifted westward to this up and coming computer guy by the name of Bill Gates. You ever hear of him?
Hey, so the name sounds familiar.
Yeah, that Bill Gates, the Bill Gates. So, but Gates doesn't know what he has. So what Gates does is Gates hires this guy named Gary. And without my notes, I don't recall what his last name is, but he hires this guy named Gary. Gary's an engineer out of the University of Kansas. And his thing was, he was big in transistors, okay? And Gates hires 10 engineers, including Gary. Gary hires this guy by the name of Min, okay? And what I found out later is he actually worked for, I think it was like Magnavox or Motorola, but he was into like electronics and stuff, right? Technology, something, right? So anyway, he then sets the 10 of these engineers up in a warehouse in Oklahoma. He walks in with my physical binder and he says, here, make this. Now, here's why Min and Gary are part of the conspiracy as well. Now, let's go back to when we were talking about the, things that are on the History Channel, where they're talking about Rockefeller's oil boom and Henry Ford's car and Edison's light bulb, okay? Gentlemen, if you were the guys who invented the GPS, wouldn't you tell the world about it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely you would, right?
From my yacht.
Okay. Oh, absolutely. So what happens is they finally take the plans because everything's there, so they manufacture everything exactly like Broadwater said. There's no way they could change it. I had it too tight, right?
Mhm.
Dude, I sat for 5 days just trying to figure out how people in the future would be able, across every domain and across every language, be able to charge for this type of service. And what I came up with, instead of saying dollars or cents or money or this or coinage or whatever, I came up with rate and fee. And if you ever jumped into an Uber, what do you see? You see a rate, you see a fee. Okay.
Mhm.
So anyway, these guys, they turn around and they manufacture and they sell the first one to the United States Army. So that's how the military gets involved, right? But they can't call it Global World Connect. So here's how I know that they are definitely part of the conspiracy. Gary's about 47, 48, 49 years old at the time. Bill Gates is about 34 years old. You're going to tell me that Bill Gates hires 10 engineers, including Gary, sets them up in a warehouse, walks in with this intellectual property and says, here, I want you guys to make this. And these people are handpicked. This didn't go through the having to work its way up the chain. This went straight from top to top to top, right? These guys manufacture it. They can't call it Global World Connect. So what they do is Gary's name is spelled G-A-R-Y. They take the G, the A, the R. Ben's name is spelled M-I-N. They add the N, the I, and the N, and they call it Garmin. And they sell the first one to the United States Army. Then they get some funding, and they move and they set up Garmin in Kansas, and then they get a little more funding, and then they move it to somewhere in Asia. I don't recall without my notes exactly where. Okay. Now, here's what's interesting about that. If you think about Gary being 47, 8, or 9, and Bill Gates hands him this stuff, you're going to tell me he didn't say to Bill, where the heck did you get this? You're 34, and I know you didn't make this yourself. Where the heck? And who's this guy, Herbert Eric Stevens, who has his name all over everything? Oh, that's okay. We already made a deal with him. Don't worry about that. You guys are supposed to just go ahead and manufacture it. So they manufacture it. So the reason it took so long for people to find out about it, the first place they tested it in was boats. What did I say? I said, if it's the same way on the ground, it'd be the same on the water than in the air. The second place they put it in airplanes. And then they put it in automobiles. So my nephew flies out to New Jersey in 2014. He says, hey, Uncle, I got this new job. I said, what is it? He says, I'm driving Uber. I said, well, what the heck is a freaking Uber? He said, well, you ought to check it out, Uncle, because I know you like to drive. You might like it. And I'm getting a little suspicious. I go, yeah, okay. So I go online, I look it up. I sign up. I get in the car. I turn on my phone, and I go, there it is. Just like I freaking drew it up in 1989.
Wow.
Look at this.
What do you think of that, Shawnee boy? That story.
I'm just digesting right now, taking it all in. Like you said, I came in the middle, but I caught up to everything. I mean, that's a wild one.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting, you guys, is in the book, there are 200 documents and inserts that validate everything. I'm the first guy to apply for a patent. Okay, the application's in the book. The copyright, it's in the book. The other thing that's interesting was I did a little shopping. I shopped with NEC of Japan, their patent division. The letters are in the book. On their letterhead, they're stationary. I shopped it with Ross Perot. I've got not one, but 2 letters back. This is when Perot was actually running for president against Bush 41. So they said, well, at the time he was too busy, but good luck and great product and blah, blah, blah. One was signed by his #1 man, Tom Luce, and the other one was signed by his secretary, Betty, and I don't remember Betty's name. But yeah, there's so much documentation in this book that proves 100% spot on that I am the guy. But here's what's at stake. Since it's the most utilized application on the face of the earth, are you kidding me, man? Silicon Valley never wanted this book to be written. Okay, so what I did when I wrote the book, when I had it in manuscript format, I went to LinkedIn. And I only knew one lady on LinkedIn, and her husband was the head of a major pharmaceutical company in this country. But she actually used to babysit my son. And we coached our kids together in basketball, and I never knew what this dude did. I just never knew. And one day he says, Eric, why don't you just go ahead and tell him that I'm the president of XYZ Corporation? I'm like, holy smokes, I never knew, right? So anyway, I said there, I said, look, I said, I'm new to this thing. I just wrote a book. I said, is it okay if I contact some of your friends here on LinkedIn? She said, sure, Eric, go ahead. So I contacted 168 people who were members of the media. And I said to them, listen, I'm a book author. I just finished writing a book. I want to get some pre-release exposure. I haven't even edited it yet. I'd like to send you a chapter out of the book and tell me what you think. All 168 said, yeah, sure, send it along, right? In 6 days, I got 500,000 hits.
Wow.
I said, oh. So then I picked 50 of the 168, and I said, listen, can I send you a second chapter? And they're like, oh, yeah. Send it. In 3 hours, I got 397,000 more hits. And I said, oh, my God, man, I have written me a book, and people will pay to see these documents. So when I try to take it and put it up on Amazon, first thing I want to do is I want to get a book review. So I find this lady, and she says, yeah, we'll review your book. It's $400. What are you going to charge for the book? And the voice says, in Kindle, I'm going to charge $44.95. And she says, with all due respect, you're an idiot. Who are you talking about? She says, nobody knows you. Nobody's going to read this book. You're pricing yourself right out of the market. Don't you know that Kindle books start at 99 cents and they go to $9.99? Nobody's going to read this thing. Now, I already knew by the time I spoke to her, I had like 2 million people waiting on this book that had access to, chapter 3 that I had sent out with Rockefeller and Gates in it on the GPS, right?
Mhm.
And I had also sent out chapter 5, which had some documentation and stuff that involves the Clintons. Okay, amazing book. So all of a sudden, she says, well, we'll take your $400 and we'll review the book, but I'm telling you, you're crazy. Are you going to put it in paperback? I said, absolutely. I'm going to put it in grayscale, which is where the documents will be in black and white. I'm selling that one for $69.24. She said, you're insane. I said, and then I'm going to put it color version of paperback, so the documents will reveal to the people exactly as they were in 1989. She said, you're insane. Nobody's going to buy this book. I said, well, if you're right, I can always lower the price. Okay. So then when I go over to Barnes and Noble, I said, well, listen, I want to put the book in hardcover. They said, well, Mr. Stevens, you're self-published in Nook and paperback, but you're making all these claims. You're naming all these names. You got Cheney in this book. You got Bush in this book. You got the Clinton. You got Bill Gates. You got Lee Iacocca. It's like, we're going to have our attorneys rip this book to shreds and we're going to vet it. I said, okay, fine. 9 days later, they called me back and they said, okay, Mr. Stevens, all the documents are 100% true. The book is 100% nonfiction. Everything checks out. You can go ahead and you can sell it for the price you quoted us. You want to know what I quoted them? In hardcover, $205.43 a copy. So you can go right now to Barnes and Noble and you can put in their search engine stuck on the outside, and when that book pops up, you'll see in hardcover it's $205.43, and when you scroll down the page, it will say published by. And they said to me, there's only one caveat. I said, what's that? And they said, you're no longer the publisher. I said, who's the publisher? And they said, Barnes and Noble Press is now the publisher at $205.43. I said, okay, fine, go ahead and put your name on it. And I hung up the phone and I said, you guys are freaking idiots. You just validated everything I wrote. So yeah, in paperback and Nook and Kindle, I'm the publisher, Herbert Eric Stevens, but in hardcover at $205.43, unless they hear this and take it down and change it tomorrow, Barnes and Noble is the publisher.
How are sales of the book?
So the book is now being printed by Barnes and Noble. You ready for this? In blocks of 300 at a time.
Wow.
They are, because as soon as I knew what the book was going to do, I started contacting colleges and universities all over the earth. And I said, the legal ramifications that are going to come forth out of this book, okay, will be debated by the best and brightest legal minds for the next 100 years. Have your colleagues take a look. Amazon's given a free preview. And if you think it's worthy, I suggest you teach it in your classrooms, okay? Amazon has it for sale in every warehouse on the face of the earth. In India, Amazon right now is selling my book for $508 a copy. The book's been out 46 months. There is not one used copy available for sale.
Wow.
Anywhere.
I was just gonna say that. That's one thing I do know about Amazon. If you don't see a lot of used for sale, that means it's selling pretty rapidly.
Well, here's something real fun. Right now, go to Amazon, and in the search engine at the top, let's look at a category. If you were to type in books that are literary, so the first word you type in is literary, L-I-T-E-R-A-R-Y, and then type in literature, L-I-T-E-R-A-T-U-R-E, literature, okay? And then type in biography. You will see 100,000 books will load in that category. It's sitting there at number 1. Literary documentation, book 1, Stuck on the Outside, My Personal Quest to Become an Integral Part of the American Dream by Herbert Eric Stevens. Okay.
Shawnee boy, can you see what I'm doing on my end? I have Amazon on the screen,
okay,
Eric, just so you know.
Literary.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then type literature.
I was doing it on my phone. So I have it up on my phone.
How to spell literary, right?
That's okay. L-I-T-E-R-A-R-Y.
It already came out.
Type in literature.
Yes, you're the first book that comes
and
up.
then type in
Mhm.
biography.
No, I already
So
did. You're the first book that comes up. Yeah.
look up on the left-hand side. How many books does it say loaded?
40,000.
Okay, 40,000.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah.
But you're
And
number one. You come up first. Yeah.
yeah, and if you do it in Kindle version, or if you do it underneath bestsellers, if you click bestsellers and you type in those same 3 words, 100,000 books load, and I'm sitting there at number one. Now, at one point in time, this book was number one across 35 different search engines between Amazon and Barnes and Noble. You can type in the word biography, 100,000 books will load. I'm number one. Dickens is number two. Jane Austen's number three, and Shakespeare's number four. I have screenshots of me outselling the Bible.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
And you have I'm sorry, you have another book coming out. Oh, by the way, while you were telling the story of the trademark office.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I did a little quick investigation, and Mr. X is deceased.
Oh, is he?
So let him rip. He was born in 1916, if I got the right fella.
No, you don't.
Oh, okay.
This guy was born in 27. He would be like 90 something. I think he'd be like 95 now.
This is
Yeah,
like
95.
with a Q? No.
No.
Okay, then I got the wrong guy.
Eric, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Yeah, so like now all this is out, like what's the next step for you?
Well, I've been trying to get legal. I've been trying to get legal help, man, and it's like your Bill Gateses of the world and your Jeff Bezoses of the world. They have it whenever a law firm puts my name in. Okay, it pops up that there is a conflict of interest, and it's like you have this amazing case, Eric, and it's like, my gosh, you really got to get some legal, representation, what have you. For 4 years, I have been at war with these guys. They hacked my desktop, they hacked my laptop, they hacked my tablet, they hacked 4 of my cell phones. And just to give you an idea, I was in the Acme one day with my son in the supermarket, and he said, "Pop, you just rang my phone." I said, "No, I didn't. My phone's in the car in my bag." He says, "No, you just called me. Look." So he pulls out his phone and shows that I called him. I said, "Okay, let's walk outside." So we walk outside. I open up the bag. My phone is shut down and turned off. Okay. I turn it on, and it shows that I actually called him. Okay.
Wow.
I was in my living room on my computer, and I walked across the floor to get something. And when I turned around, I was walking back towards my computer. I was on my own computer screen walking towards my computer, and a sign popped up and it said, "Hey, Eric Stevens, we hope you don't mind us filming you." So I said, "Yeah, you guys are real funny." So I put a bandage over the camera. I sat down and I continued to work. And then all of a sudden, this hand came in the middle of the screen. It went up to the left side and up the toolbar, and it clicked. And all my files came out, and then all of a sudden, all of these papers were just flying out of the file, out of the folders. So I had the presence of mind to take my cell phone out, and I started taking pictures, man, taking pictures, and I literally caught the hack. I was hacked by Google, LinkedIn, and Microsoft from Bill Gates' own desktop with IP numbers. I got them all. That's going to be in the next book. Okay. All 3 of them at the exact same time. So unfortunately for me, and just tell all your listeners, if they are book authors, when you are writing your book, at the end of the night, make sure you keep a copy in a couple of flash drives, because that's the only way I saved the book, because they went in my computer and they emptied it out trying to literally steal the book. So I took one of my flash drives and I drove 50 miles. Okay. Shawnee boy, man, let me tell you something. I go to a public library, I stick it into the machine, and a sign pops up and it says, "Hey, Eric Stevens, you're not authorized to use this computer, Microsoft." And that was the day that I found out that Bill Gates, when they got the contract to put the computers in all the public libraries in the United States, they put a back door in them, in every single one of them. Yeah. I called the FBI, and I've never told this story on air, but I called the FBI, and they said, "Well, we're going to send you to the sheriff's office." Called the sheriff's office. They said, "Well, we're going to send you to the local police department." Local police department, they sent 2 guys over to the house. And I'm just naive, man. I'm putting the book together. I got each chapter in folders. And I said, man, my computer's been hacked. I'm glad you guys came by to look at this. They said, no, we don't do any of that. What's going on? And here's what I said, you guys. I said, oh, well, I'm the guy that invented the GPS, and I'm writing. What the heck did I want to say that for, man? They thought I was crazy as a bed bug. So the one says, yeah, well, if anybody else here, I said, well, my son's upstairs. He said, yeah, I'm going to go talk to him. So he goes up and he talks to my son. He says, your dad crazy, what's the matter with some guy, whatever. So they said, well, listen, we don't do any of that. You call Geek Squad. I go, okay, fine. So they leave. So I called Geek Squad and hello, this is Geek Squad. I said, yeah. I said, I got these codes on my computer. I read the code. And the lady says, oh my gosh, man. She says, they are inside of your computer and they are doing whatever the heck it is that they want to do. I said, well, is there anything you can do? She says, this is way above our pay grade. She said, do you have carbonite? I said, yeah. She said, well, you call carbonite. So I called carbonite and the carbonite guy says, man, this is way above my pay grade. You can't believe what they're doing inside of your computer. I said, well, what are we going to do? He says, hey, we're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to call support. And I'm going to stay on the line with you. So we call support. Support says, yeah, what's going on? He says, well, listen, this is Carbonite. Mr. Stevens here. He's got this code. He reads in the one code and he says, excuse me. He says, Mr. Carbonite, you need to get off the line. He says, oh. Okay, so he hangs up. He says, okay, Mr. Stevens, read me the other code. I read another code. He says, yeah, you've been hacked. I said, I know I've been hacked, man. Who did the hack? He said, oh, that one right there? He says, that was Google. He says, but, I can clean all this up for you. I said, no. I said, I have unplugged this computer and bagged it. And I said, and it is going to get forensically checked whenever I get into the court system because they put these files in here. And these files that they put in here into my computer, which were not mine, which I never clicked on, okay? If you hover over it, it tells you where the file came from and when it was created. So, he says, well, but I can clean it all up. I said, no, thank you very much. Have a good day. You sure? Yeah, have a good day. So these files all say child. So, I'm thinking these dudes done loaded up some child pornography into my computer. So if I click on it, now the federales are going to come to my house and they're going to take me away because, I've got child pornography on my computer. I never clicked on it. I hovered over it. Now, what it tells you is there's a date modified on your computer over a file that will tell you the very last time you were in that file. So it said date modified. It said December 5th, 2017. And so the first 8 of them in a row that I hovered over, they all said the same thing. Date modified the 5th, date modified the 5th, okay? File created on the 5th, file created on the 5th. When I got down to that 9th one, man, guess what it said? It said file creation date, December 13th. Now, how can it be created on the 13th if the last time anybody went into it was on the 5th? And that was the hack. And it had the IP address and it came straight from Bill Gates' desktop.
Wow.
So then he sends me an email. Yeah, he sends me an email with him on it. He's sitting at his desk in front of his library, and he says something to the effect, basically it's a bribe. And what he's saying to me is, well, hey, didn't you used to work for me all them years ago? You could agree to that, right? Because, I hire people and I trust them to do their job. You can agree to that, right? Well, if I click, yeah, I agree with that, then somebody's going to say, well, how could you agree with it unless you used to work for Bill? How would you know that? You can't agree with it unless you used to work. What are you trying to blackmail Bill Gates? I totally ignored it, okay? Screenshot it. That will be in book 2, okay? Just amazing stuff. But yeah, Silicon Valley has done everything they could at every turn, man, to literally shut me down. A couple of days ago, last week, some guys asked me, they said, well, hey, has your book ever been for sale on eBay? I said, well, every once in a while you can find it. I said, but it's not supposed to be being sold on eBay. I've got contracts with Amazon and Barnes and Noble, okay? And I'm supposed to get 35% royalty on the book, okay? So I go to eBay and I open up a brand new account. They said, hey, welcome to your new eBay account, right? So I write Stuck on the Outside. Anybody who's listening can go right now to eBay and type in the search box Stuck on the Outside. And you'll see they've got 2 copies of my book, and they're selling one for $112, and they're selling the second one for $142. So I go to the help desk and I said, hey, my name's Herbert Eric Stevens. I'm the book author. I want to know, why is it that you're allowing someone to illegally sell my book on eBay for $142 and for $112 when the book retails for $88.54? You know what they came back and said? Your account is suspended indefinitely because you are creating problems basically here at eBay. Now, they didn't go after the guys that are illegally stealing and selling my book, okay? So J.K. Rowling, when she did Harry Potter, basically the book sold for about $24 if I recollect correctly, okay? And she probably made $8 to $10 a book. Well, on my book, okay, at 35%, I am guaranteed on Kindle and Nook $15 a book. On the grayscale black and white version at $69.24, I'm guaranteed $24 a book. On the color version at $88.54, I'm guaranteed $30 a book. And on the hardcover at $205.43, it's $75 a book. Gentlemen, I am sitting here owed 46 months worth of book royalties, okay? Somewhere north, way north of $100 million in book royalties. So first they steal my GPS and they take all of that money in the royalties. I write a book about it and they steal all that money too.
Uncle Eric, that's a joke. I'm sorry.
Fine.
You do have an uphill climb. I do feel for you. I hope that we do have to.
This helps.
It
This
would-
helps. You guys giving me voice helps because for 4 years, nobody in this country would even give me voice. I finally ran into a lady named Valerie Silver at WWPR AM 1490 in Florida. And I drove from Virginia to Florida and I sat her down. I said, look, I need to get my story out. She said, Eric, I censor no one. And she flipped the switch and turned the mic on and did the interview on air. No prep, no papers, no notes, nothing. And she's the first person to ever give me voice. And from there, I was able to do 3 other radio broadcasts with 2 gentlemen who do a podcast called Paraprobe. So if you Google Paraprobe, you can see those 3 interviews, 1, 2, and 3. And then I did an interview, my first interview for a majority Black audience with a gentleman by the name of Eric Fleming, who does a podcast called A Moment with Eric Fleming. And this guy has one of the oldest established Black audiences. And he actually interviewed Obama back in 2008.
I actually heard that. I heard that podcast.
Yeah, that was some amazing stuff.
Over the
I'll tell you
weekend,
what,
yeah,
I say it's not popular to Black audiences as well because I am one of the very few who never pulled the trigger for Obama. I never voted for Obama. I didn't think he was good for America, and I proved to be right. And in chapter 8 in the book, I actually became an advisor to President Trump while being stuck on the outside. So you'll see all of the papers up to 2017 in book 1 that I actually sent to the White House. And I was spot on, man. I told him that Paul Ryan was an anaconda, that's a snake, and he ended up out. And I also told him that Mike Pence was a Judas, and I proved to be right there too. So I actually advised them for 4 years throughout. And in book 2, I've got some amazing White House papers, and I own all the rights because it's never been asked for. It's never been paid for. I wrote copyright on everything. It's all my own intellectual property. And there are some amazing things. I also had suggested that he make a policy change. And the only thing I can tell you is 48 hours later, exit the mustache. Okay? So I'm just saying, you'll be able to literally look at those documents and you'll be able to see that there's a lot of what I suggested throughout the entire 4 years that he did. First, my contacts were Steve Bannon and Kellyanne. Then when Bannon left, it was just Kellyanne. And then when Kellyanne left, I put everything through the West Wing. But yeah, I actually, you'll be able to see many things that I advised them on, and they actually used the policy. Now, I got one more real thing here real quick that I wanted to do for you guys, if that's okay. Do I have one more minute or so?
You do, you do.
Okay, all right. So one night, I'm sitting there and I'm like, geez, man, I wonder what the book is doing over at Barnes and Noble. So I click on it, and these tabs, these green tabs popped up, and I said, oh my God, there is no way that they ever wanted this to get out. Oh my gosh. And what they actually had published was a list of all of the various categories that they were supplying the book to colleges and universities in. Okay, so I'm going to read you some of these. Okay, now normally if you get a book at college, right, you're lucky if you can use it in 2 courses. Most of the time, you can only use it in 1. Okay? So when college students go to the bookstore, these are the categories that professors requested the book in so much, okay, that they ended up actually creating categories to supply it to colleges and universities all over the world. So the first thing that is being taught in is administrative law and regulatory practice. Then it's being taught in business biography of specific individuals. You can then find it in civil servant biographies. Here's one, college and university faculty biography. Okay. Then it goes into database administration and management. It's being taught as database software. It's being taught under economics and finance. It's being taught under education, political aspects. Hang on, I'm gonna flip the page here. Okay. Then it's being taught under governmental finance and fiscal policies. It's being taught under historical biography reference. Here's my all-time favorite. You guys ready for this one? Legal theory and philosophy, general and miscellaneous. Then it's being taught under optical communication networks. And it's being taught under utilities, computer applications, 13 different genres. 13. Wow. The book is 8 chapters long, and the other 7 are just as good as the GPS. I was a very, very prolific young man. And like I said, when I was showing what I was telling Tom, I said, when I was writing the book and I was looking at these documents I hadn't seen in 29 years, it was like, holy smokes, who was this guy? Right? Because I hadn't seen these docs myself, and so they're long, but it's absolutely amazing. But also in the book, you'll see where I had requested to get copies of 7 of my copyrights, because I have like maybe, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 different copyrights over the years. And I requested 7, and in 2014, they sent all 7. So in 2017, I wanted to get some fresh ones to put in the book. And so when I called up the copyright office, they told me, hey, it's going to take 8 to 12 weeks. And don't call, don't do anything. It's going to take 8 to 12. Do you understand? I said, yeah, okay, that's fine. Just send me the 7. They're okay, fine. So I call my sister and I tell my sister, I say, hey, I'm going to get some stuff from, some fresh ones to put in my book. She says, well, how long is that going to take? I said, well, the lady said 8 to 12 weeks. My sister said, ain't going to take 8 to 12 weeks. That's what you're talking about, man. I just got off the phone with the lady said 8 to 12 weeks. She says, I keep telling you, you don't listen to me. So what are you talking about? She said, you got some kind of special clearance that you know nothing about, and it's not going to take 8 to 12 weeks. I said, yeah, well, whatever. I hang up the phone, right? In 36 hours, that stuff is sitting in my box.
Wow.
36 hours later. And it literally said, well, hey, the first one we have, Mr. Stevens, and we got the second one right here. The third one we have, the fourth one, you can even come to our viewing booth and look at it if you like. We got the 5th one, we got the 6th one, but that 7th one, gosh, we've either misplaced it or lost it. Sorry. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, Library of Congress is supposed to be the best on the face of the earth, and you're going to tell me you lost something? Now, what do you think they lost? Let me give you a clue. It's a binder that cost me $100 that has IP in it called Global World Connect.
Okay.
They can't find it. Yeah, it's gone. Just turned into vapor. Yeah, they dramatically dropped it off at my doorstep one night in the snow. okay, via car. They didn't send it through the postal service. So I take it, and it's in a manila envelope, says Senator J. Rockefeller, and there's a letter in it that says, hey, you know, he thinks most of this is pie in the sky. He doesn't have the money people think he does because most of his money is tied up in a trust. And by the way, he's not doing venture capital right now. So good luck with your project. Sorry. So I'm pissed off. I take the letter, I throw it away, I take the binder, I put it up on the shelf in the garage. 2 years later, Mr. X from 8 o'clock in the morning, he calls me up. He says, Eric Stevens? I said, yes. He says, this is Mr. X. Do you remember me? I said, of course I remember you. He says, man, he says, it's been 2 years and I still have your intellectual property sitting right here on my desk. He says, but I got to tell you, he says, like I said, there's nothing like it on the face of the earth. He says, but I've got something to tell you. I said, what's that? He says, Bill Gates has your stuff and he's using it. I said, excuse me? He says, Eric, I don't know how he got it. I don't know how he got it, but he has it and he's using it. I said, was there anything I can do? I said, is there anything we can do? He says, right now, he says in 1991, he's got 200 attorneys and $1 billion war chest. There's absolutely nothing he can do.
Yeah.
He says, but I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah.
I said, okay. So we said our pleasantries, we hung up, and you know, there you go. So I'm just hopeful the fact that you know, people like yourselves, you know, Tom, you and Shelly Boy are giving me this platform to get this information out there. It's all public record. All the documents are legit. And like I said, the interesting thing about it is people can purchase the book. They can see everything's right there. And so this is no yarn that I'm spinning. It's nothing I'm making up. It's all true. One of the guys who interviewed me last week, he says, this reminds me of the Tom Hanks movie, Life is Like a Box of Chocolates. What's it
Oh,
called?
Forrest Gump?
Yeah.
Forrest
He
Gump.
said, yeah, this is like Forrest Gump, man. He's like, I said, yeah, I get it.
Well-
he said, because all of these things that you're involved in end up being a part of history. He says, but I said, well, it's kind of like it's kind of like the editor of the book. She calls me up one day. She says, you need to get over here right now. So I go over there. I go, what's the matter? She says, all of this. She says, nobody's going to believe any of this. Nobody's going to believe a single solitary word in this book. This is crazy. Nobody's going to believe that one guy did all of this. She said, you can forget about it. She said, that there's no way. I go, well, what's the problem? She says, well, that's the problem. I said, what are you talking about? What are you getting at? She said, you got all of the proof. I said, and why do you think I'm writing the book?
Well, Shawnee Boy, I had, before you came on, I had mentioned to Mr. Stevens, somebody listening to this would think that this is the wildest, craziest story ever.
Yeah.
But the credence that you have to apply to it is he's got documents to back up everything he's saying. So you have to
They're
give,
federal documents too.
yeah. And
In color.
yeah, so, and that's what makes it compelling, you know, and well, we certainly appreciate you coming on, Eric. I'm sorry I can't get out of the habit of calling you Mr. Stevens. It's the Irish
That's
Catholic.
okay. We come from that era.
That's the Irish
Yeah.
Catholic in me. But I just wanted to point out, he had, Mr. Steven, Eric had mentioned another podcast he was on. It was a discussion with, I can't think of the fella's name now.
Oh, Eric Fleming?
Eric Fleming.
Yeah.
On Anchor FM, and I would highly recommend it. I listened to it over the weekend.
Isn't
Yeah.
that one amazing?
Yeah, I enjoyed it immensely, and I listened to it in
that
prep.
one was pretty rough, man. That was pretty rough. That's not for kids.
No, I had listened to it in preparation for this podcast, and I just want to direct folks who listen to our podcast to check it out. It's called On the Book, Stuck Out on the Outside, featuring Herbert Eric Stevens, and that's a moment with Eric Fleming, and you can find his podcast on Anchor FM. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that before we let you go. And we are eagerly anticipating your next book. The YouTube and audio audience can find the current book, the link to the current book. I'm going to put the Amazon link on it. Or maybe I should put do you get more money from Barnes & Noble or Amazon?
Listen, neither one of them. Bill Gates called Bezos, said he wanted the book squashed. And the way they squashed the book was they jacked the numbers up. Okay, they turned up the algorithm to make this book fall, because when it finally hit Amazon, it hit their bestsellers paid rank list in Kindle version at book number 109 out of 2.5 million books. Okay. Now, in hardcover and paperback over at Barnes and Noble, the day that it went up, they had the book ranked 99,999,999. That's 100 million. Okay. In 4 days, that book was ranked 200,000.
Wow.
That's a sky climb.
Yeah.
That's a sky climb. So what they did was they turned up the algorithm to make the book plummet and fall. So it went from book number 109 the next day, it was ranked 10,000. No book drops like that. Then the next day it was ranked 100,000. Then 200,000. Today, where it's sitting right there at 40,000, ranked number 1. You click on the number 2 book, it's ranked like number 1900. You click on my book, it's ranked at 5,532,000, but yet still it's number 1 out of 40,000 you're looking at. If you look under bestsellers, it's number 1 out of 100,000 books. So they tried to drive it down that way. So when somebody would look at the book ranking, they say, oh, this book's ranked 5 million, must be a bunch of crap. Nobody's buying this. I'll spend my money elsewhere. But the funny thing about it is that, you know, with all that prep work I did before I got it out there and up there, it's on automatic pilot. They can't shut it off and they can't make it stop. 46 months, and you're looking at it right there on your computer screen, 40,000 books in the category, and it's sitting there at number 1. Now, what's that tell you? Is the book selling? You better believe it is.
Yeah. Well, we hope to help you sell a few more, and we encourage.
Yeah, because whenever we get to court, I'm going to get my money. So
Yeah.
I tell people, they say, well, I don't want to buy it because you're not getting paid. Don't worry about it. Okay. So
Well,
there's nothing that a court subpoena is not going to handle whenever I can get legal representation. And listen, guys, you guys find me an attorney, I get my money released and what have you, I will give you a good portion. You'll be fine.
We just want to get
I'll put it in writing.
a free cup of coffee. That's all I want is a cup of coffee. But Shawnee boy, I task you with.
Hey, the rights to be able to say, hey man, we're the guys that got the guy a fair deal.
Yeah, well,
There you go. There you go.
we're very happy to give you the platform. And Shawnee boy, you're tasked with following the ongoing story and keeping tabs on Mr. Stevens.
Yes,
Hey, the guy-
absolutely.
And finally, so yeah, you have my number. Give me a call when you're ready to release the second book, and maybe we'll have you back for that.
Outstanding. Outstanding. I
And
love that.
in the meantime, we wish you the best of luck, and we certainly appreciate your time tonight.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Appreciate it.
All
Okay.
right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
All right.